Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. Halloween Eve as we prepare for this showdown at Penn State on Saturday. Can't wait for that. I mean, the Buckeyes can exercise a lot of demons. Ryan Day specifically, if they can get this win, they're going to be right on track to achieve all their goals if they can get this win. But as we all know, it's not going to be easy. Bax and I are going to get into looking at the Penn State game. We're going to also translate what we heard yesterday at the press conference. Very interesting press conference yesterday. We got Ryan Day as usual, and we got both coordinators. Usually we get one or the other. We got both. We didn't get either of them after the Oregon game. But anyway, we got Chip Kelly, we got Jim Knowles. A lot of interesting stuff. And we're going to get to all of that. Before we do that, I want to let you know about our friends at Swenson's. It's fantastic. It's an Ohio company, Swenson's Drive-In Restaurants. It's fantastic. I had it Monday, my daughter and I, and I had their Galley Boys, like their famous one, and it's great. But I, for the first time, had the Big T's burger. Oh my gosh, is it good? And then I was, telling my daughter after we had some of those onion rings, I'm like, these are the best onion rings I think I've ever had in my life. She said, these are not onion rings, these are bracelets. She's putting them on as bracelets. They're that big. They're fantastic. And let's get you guys a good deal from Swenson's. Let's get you guys a good deal. We can get you guys a free milkshake this week. At Swenson's, we bring the taste, we bring the hustle, we bring the smile. Visit swensonsdriveins.com to find a stand near you. Why do the curb servers at Swenson's Drive-In sprint to your car? Because sometimes you just need a juicy burger and a pumpkin milkshake, and you need it fast, or a Buckeye milkshake. No matter if you're stopping for a quick lunch between meetings, celebrating a Saturday football win, or feeding a late-night craving for a burger and fries, our curb servers will be sprinting to serve you. Swenson's Drive-Ins, delivering comfort food to your car window since 1934. Visit swensonsdriveins.com for stand locations. All right, here's where you guys really got to pay attention. Visit any Swenson's location this week and mention Bucknuts to receive a free small milkshake with any purchase. What a great opportunity to try Swenson's Buckeye Shake made with peanut butter and chocolate. Visit swensonsdriveins.com for stand locations. I tried the Buckeye Shake. I tried it last year as well, but they brought the Buckeye Shake over. Fantastic. My daughter had the pumpkin shake. She loved that. Buckeye Shake is fantastic. Also fantastic is Matt Baxendell. Let's bring him in here. Bax, I think that you're a pretty big fan of Swenson's, if memory recalls.
Yeah, Swenson's is, I always joke, a top 10 reason I married my wonderful wife. It was an Akron-only joint. There was like 7 of them around the greater Akron area. It started up there and only came to Columbus a few years ago. And so she always talked this place up, and it actually lived up to the hype when I went up there. And I'm like, well, all right, this is a top 10 reason I'm marrying you. So I strongly encourage everybody to get some Swenson's in their life because it's awesome. The ground beef, they never tell you this, but I swear to God, there's brown sugar in it. It's like almost a sweet beef. It's really good. I get a Galley Boy or two and a large California, which is one of their, it's the purple soda drink that they have there. It's excellent. I'm a giant Swenson's fan.
All right, let's get to yesterday's press conference. I guess I'll start with right at the top. I had the first question. I asked Ryan Day, hey, I'm like, the Carson Hinzman situation has been a mystery for us. Obviously, it's not a mystery for Ryan Day. He knows exactly what's going on. So I asked him, can you explain what's going on there? And is there a chance that Carson could, get into the plans this week, could possibly contribute going forward? And he said, yeah, he's going to, rep at multiple spots this week, and there's a chance he could help out. And then he said, well, the reason is, he's been repping at center and Seth McLaughlin has been playing great. Okay, but come on. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, like in Ohio State football. A guy starts 12 games last year at center as a redshirt freshman and had the secret suspension. Wasn't really a secret in the Cotton Bowl. We really haven't seen him since. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's an interesting spot because Ryan Day can pretend he's not burying him by saying he's the backup center, and that's the most important position on the line, and blah, 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 blah. That's all good and dandy, but the reality is this is a guy who could easily play starting at guard too, and they haven't even given him a shot. I'm a little surprised here, but this is like that time Michael Thomas didn't play a whole year, and we never really got an explanation until after the fact. This is strong vibes there for me.
That's a good call. I almost forgot about that. Yeah, where he played as a true freshman in 2012, and I had a redshirt year in 2013. I've never seen that, a healthy redshirt after you play as a true freshman, and then whatever they did, it worked because he came out and just balled out in 2014. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's just that's the vibe I get here is that he We all know what he said last year. For those of you who aren't aware, he might have thrown a little bit of stuff under the bus before the Missouri game, and that's how he got not suspended. So we got to watch Enoch Vimahi struggle for a whole game. That was great. The truth of the matter is right now on the O-line, they're desperate. And the fact you have a starter from last year. Now, the flip side of that argument, I will say this. Where we're in trouble right now is at the tackle position. And I don't think Carson Hinzman should be playing tackle. So that's something to factor in here is that you have multiple functional guards on this team right now. And I do think Hinzman's probably best at center. But we're in enormous trouble at the tackle position. And that's the spot where I don't think Hinzman necessarily helps you a lot.
Yeah. Chris on Facebook says the coaches will make adjustments and get the job done. He's so tired of everyone talking about firing Coach Day. We haven't heard us say that. I'll say that at Bucknuts. None of us are calling for Coach Day to be fired. Were we disappointed in the Oregon game? Yes, especially the ending. Were we disappointed in the Nebraska game? Yes. Bax even wrote the bucket of no chill this past Sunday because there was no chill. Yeah, they beat Nebraska by 4, but not good enough. If your goal is to be 10-2, that's a good win, right? If your goal is to win the national championship, not a good win. So anyway, we turn the page. All right. What else are we going to get into? Just the way they talk about the offensive. Go ahead. I
was going to say the firing Ryan Day thing has become like this vocal minority in the fan base here. To me, I think we're in a spot right now, Dave, where when we hired Ryan Day, you and I talked about this, and I don't think it gets enough talk. This is the first time head coach we've had since Paul Brown, I believe. I mean, it's not a job that people typically learn on, right? They come here and they've coached for 5 years or 10 years somewhere else as a head coach. And you know what Ryan Day right now reminds me of? Is it reminds me of Kirby Smart before he won a national title at Georgia. He was a monster coordinator star that everybody thought was exceptional and was going to be a great head coach, and then spent half a decade sort of learning on the job. We've watched Ryan Day learning on the job for probably 5 years now. And it's not that he hasn't had an enormous amount of success, and with the talent at hand, I mean, he better. But the reality is that some of the stuff that he's been making mistakes on are things that maybe he wouldn't have made mistakes on if he'd been a head coach for 5 years somewhere before he came here. Some of this, how to handle staff, handle personnel. These are things where, the side of the football that he's not the most familiar with. He came up as an offensive guru guy. So it took him longer to get his hands into the defense than maybe a head coach should have. These are all things that it happens to me with coaches that are learning how to run a program. And I think Ryan Day is still going through that. I mean, what is he, 43 right now? Something like that. And
44. Yeah.
And this is his, sixth year, right? This is his sixth season.
Yep.
I don't think Kirby Smart won a natty till his 6th or 7th season at Georgia. And he made some of these similar mistakes in terms of hiring personnel offensively that he couldn't figure out. These are all issues that, first-time head coaches go through. And that's one of the reasons Ohio State hasn't hired a first-time head coach before Ryan Day in 75 years was because we don't typically have the patience to put up with people going through this. So it's just a thought for people out there who are – I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we need to see him hit some milestones here. And I think, what I think we're about to talk about with the defensive side of the football is something that he has to be more assertive on. But this is a guy who wins an unbelievable amount of football games. And if he can get those little details right to close out some of the games that matter, then he's going to turn into a guy that could be another 15, 20-year Nick Saban kind of Woody Hayes presence. So let's not talk about firing Ryan Day just yet here, guys.
Well, and we'll get to the defense and what Knowles had to say in just a moment. I do want to ask you about what Day and Chip Kelly said about the offensive line. I mean, they were evasive. At first it was if Zen can play, he's going to be the left tackle. Then Day clarified that later and said, well, not for sure that he'd be starting if he's cleared, but we'll see how Zen looks. So Zen might be the left tackle. They could move Donovan Jackson out there, which is what they did after Zen got hurt. They put Luke Montgomery in at left guard. I mean, they were asked several questions about the offensive line. And it didn't really exude a lot of confidence. I'll put it that way. That was just my take on it. What was your take on what Coach Day and Coach Kelly said about the offensive line?
I think they couldn't hide the fact that they're like, oh, crap, for being real honest. I think that they're like, well, we hope Zen can start. And it tells me something, that if their first default is the guy who had an abysmal game and then got hurt at the end of it is the one we hope can start, that reflects how badly they think their other options are, right? And to me, this is something to put in the bucket. Like, this is what happens when you recruit like Ohio State at every other position but the O-line, and on the O-line you have Minnesota talent. It's all 3-star kids from Ohio and Indiana, and like, kids you flip from Northwestern. Like, we're not bringing in high-end talent on the O-line. We keep missing, especially at the tackle position. There are some guys at guard and center that were higher-rated recruits, but when was the last time we had a 4-star tackle?
Well,
like
Paris
a legit
Johnson,
4-star.
Paris Johnson, but
Yeah.
right, he was 5-star. Yeah,
And he was an Ohio kid.
Right. I think that's what you mean, right? When's the last time we got like maybe Nicholas Petit Ferrer? Was he the last one? That was a highly rated out of state. Was Petit Ferrer? Am I forgetting somebody? Donovan Jackson. There you go. Well, Donovan Jackson's on a tackle.
He's a guard. He's a guard, though.
He might be a tackle.
Yeah, like what do we like when we talk about tackles here? Like, I don't remember like even the last time. Like, I don't think the Armstrong twins. Neither one of them were 4-star kids. George Fitzpatrick wasn't a 4-star kid. Zen Mahalski was a 3-star kid. I mean, these are all and not to get too fixated on stars, but
Ian Moore's
a guard, though.
But and I'll say this though, it's almost like an in-state recruit if you get somebody from Indiana. Now this year Indiana's good, but typically you're unless you're going to Notre Dame. But if you're picking between Indiana, Purdue, and Ohio State, it's like, come on. And the offensive line coach at Ohio State is from Indiana, played at Indiana. So like Ian Moore, yes, technically out of state,
but he's not a tackle. He's playing guard for us, isn't he?
I'm talking going down south and getting me a 5-star or high 4-star. I think Petit Ferrer is probably the last one.
Yeah, I mean, we go everywhere in the country and land top 10 players at their positions except for tackle. And that's why coming into this season, whenever you and I were having the whole summer of what's our big fear, what's our biggest worry, I stayed on the O-line the whole damn time, even when we thought we started figuring out the middle, because I'm like, who the hell's going to back up the tackles? And as we saw with Zen, look, Zen had a really rough game against Nebraska. I'm not convinced he wasn't hurt right away. We didn't even do basic stuff like try to roll the pocket to try to give him help. I don't know if he had something, one of his ankles was messing with him early on, but he looked pretty slow-footed to begin with. And then he got hurt at the end of the game. Like, I have no good answer other than staple a tight end next to whoever plays left tackle and just assume that we can throw the ball with 3 guys out in routes if we have to. I mean, really, that's where I'm at with this.
And really, I see some people, like, I do believe we're talking about some guys like Armstrong's, I think initially were 3 stars and I think they finished as 4 stars. I think
they just elevated at the end.
Yeah, I think
they're Ohio kids too.
They got the Ohio State bump.
Yeah, and they're Ohio kids.
About the Bama bump. I think they did
Carter Lowe this year too. He's another one where like
Carter
he's
Lowe
listed as a tackle. And
yeah, I mean, at least they didn't miss on him. I mean, I don't know. But again, they didn't get anybody in the portal. I mean, a tackle. We said all offseason, get another tackle, move Josh Fryer to guard, get another tackle, get another tackle, get another tackle. They didn't do that. And the recruiting misses, the portal misses have reared their ugly head. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking going into the season, thinking Zen Mahalski. It's okay that Zen Mahalski is our best backup tackle. Like, how is that acceptable at Ohio State?
Well, and honestly, the recruiting, if you look at it side by side, I did this a couple weeks ago. Side by side, this is Bowman stuff right now we're looking at here, right? That was the Bowman days of recruiting, and the reality is he would stick to the 3-star kids or the Ohio kids, and that was all we landed. And we didn't get great kids outside of the one big class, the Brew Crew, right, under Bowman, because that was a little bit of a different story that I don't think anything really to do with Jim Bowman. Justin Fry recruits like Jim Bowman. That's where we're at right now with this.
Right, he does.
And I don't know how else to put it. We recruit freaking Lamborghinis at every other position on the entire team, and we're bringing in Pintos on the offensive line, and particularly at tackle, because you can find guards and centers. 3-star kids from Ohio turn out to be awesome guards and centers all the time. How many elite tackles have we had come out of Ohio in the last 10 years? Taylor Decker, Jackson, what's his name? Carmen, right? Who went to Clemson. And then Paris Johnson. Those are the only elite Ohio tackles that have been like the can't miss kind of guys in the last 10 years. So you have to go outside of Ohio for tackles. Yeah, get the good ones in state, right? You have to take them, right? But you have to get more than that. And we're already on a line where Simmons is a transfer at left tackle. So the fact that we couldn't The depth at tackle is the only position on the team where I'm like, well, if that guy gets hurt, we're screwed. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, they're geez. I know it's not as easy as like, well, how come we can't recruit on the offensive line like we do at wide receiver? I get that, but like every year they have a star-studded wide receiver group every year, right? And the
Every year we have a
2022
stud tight
offensive
end
line,
or
the
stud
2022
quarterback
offensive
every
line
year.
was very good, but since then the offensive line, but even before that, the offensive line just most years leaves a lot to be desired. They were a good O-line in 2022. Fry inherited a good offensive line.
He inherited a lot of talent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a good O-line. Look
inherited
at
a lot
Dwan
of talent.
Jones. Dwan Jones is starting for the Browns right now and looks good. Okay, Paris Johnson's one of the best young tackles in the league, was the first tackle off the board. Luke Whippler shouldn't have left after that year, but even as a third-year sophomore, he was a sixth-round pick. Shouldn't have left early, but whatever. We beat that horse to death. All right, Knowles. Are we buying that Lathan Ransom is actually – is this gamesmanship? And also, I'll go back on the offensive line. Hopefully the stuff with Zen and them saying what they said is just gamesmanship. I'm hoping. I'm not saying it is. Hopefully they just don't want Penn State to know. Maybe they know Zen's not going to play, or even if he is healthy, they wouldn't put him in there. They just don't want to let Penn State know what they're going to do. I'm hoping. Same deal with Lathan, because I had heard Lathan was probably going to miss multiple weeks. Coach Day said he's a good chance he could play. He's going to practice. We'll see how he does. Go ahead. Translate what Day and Knowles said about that.
All I know is that they wouldn't have moved Jordan Hancock to safety if it was a 1-week injury to Lathan Ransom.
Right.
Like, let's be real here. Like, you can listen to whatever these people say. Watch what they do. Like, that's a good life advice for people too. Like, don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. I think it's
not here.
Yeah, I see very much gamesmanship going on this week. Look, it's. I'll be honest. This weekend's game is the hinge point on the season to me. If Ohio State wins this game at Penn State, then they have a downhill slope with the only potential real major speed bump being either an Indiana team that's improved, but we should still beat, or a Michigan team that's dog crap, but it's Michigan, and we have to get over that hump, right? Like, this is a huge weekend. So all the gamesmanship sitting around out there, like, if I'm Ryan Day, I probably wouldn't tell you who was starting on my line either, especially if I'm not sure. I'm going to tell you Lathan Ransom's going to probably play just so that you have to game plan for the secondary differently. And by the way, Penn State doesn't know who their quarterback's going to be next weekend either.
Well, they might know. They don't want to tell Penn. I think they know. They just don't want to tell Ohio State.
Aller's not playing. There's no way.
They know right now what's happening. Right. And I don't know. Maybe Aller will. Maybe the plan is to play him a little. I don't know. They know. Guarantee. It's Wednesday. Penn State absolutely knows what's happening at quarterback. Ohio State doesn't.
Yep. And then Penn State doesn't know what we're doing at a couple spots either. It's gamesmanship. It's gamesmanship. I think of all the things Jim Knowles said at the press conference, the Lathan Ransom stuff, I just shrug off. That's not what I think was important that was said.
What do you think? What did kind of stand out to you about what Knowles said? And translate
the D-line rotation.
Yes.
The guys, if you read body language and you read between the lines on this, I'll be honest, I don't understand this. And it goes back to the first-time head coach stuff with Ryan Day. Larry Johnson is getting his way on that D-line, and it doesn't seem like it's what Knowles wants to do, and he's passing the buck on the D-line to him because he's going, it's not on me. And Ryan Day won't say, Larry Johnson, you let Jim Knowles do whatever the hell he wants because it's his defense. For whatever reason, and maybe it's because LJ's 75 and a legend, and Ryan Day is 43 years old, and doesn't want to be the guy who steps on the toes of a guy who's 30 years older than him, but whatever reason it is, LJ is the one that they're putting the buck on for the fact that we are wildly overplaying the top group on the D-line, not rotating in a very talented young group, and also not playing as many of the three-man sets that Knowles wants to run. There is a very clear disconnect between Knowles and Johnson, and Day isn't doing – if you want my one real serious criticism of Ryan Day this year, he is not doing enough to say whoever's in charge is in charge.
Right. And I didn't like that from Knowles yesterday when he was asked about the D-line rotation. Are you okay with, how it was with the splitting up the reps and this and that? And he said, yeah, I'm confident in whatever Larry Johnson wants to do up there. I was like, you're the defensive coordinator.
You're the $2 million a year man.
Ryan Day should step in and regulate that if Knowles isn't going to. I just don't get it. I
get it. Look, if you're ever in a management role, and you're a young person, I've done this in a professional environment, where I have a person who's worked a career for 30 years in a designated role that he's really good at. What do I have to tell that person? It's a struggle, right? And then anybody who in any field can associate that, right? You have somebody who's super experienced in a role, and you're the young person who's now in charge, and you're like, well, I mean, you've been doing this since I was born, so like, what am I going to do to criticize you, right? And it's an awkward spot to be in. But what Ryan Day is finding himself in right now is that he is a guy who doesn't really want to change, and Larry Johnson, who I think is a little bit resting on his legendary laurels, which he has well earned. I don't want to say that about LJ, that he didn't earn all the credit that he gets. But I think that if they have something that they want to do in 2024 with the defense, LJ shouldn't be the reason they don't do it. And that is the strong vibes I'm getting from that situation right now.
And I do agree with what Rusty is saying here. He's saying, what's he supposed to say? I get that. That's a good point, Rusty, on YouTube. Knowles is not going to sit up there and say, there's another good one from Rusty. Like, what's he going to say? I never wanted to inherit LJ, but I had no choice. Now we're stuck with him. Yeah, he's not going to say that. He's not going to throw Larry under the bus. But the whole situation, I'm not a fan of that at all. That is pretty funny. All right. I'm going to let you guys know about Babbel. And I love that we have Bax on here because Bax was a customer of Babbel, still is. Bax is like fluent in like 4 languages now. All right, the best way to learn a language, immersion, okay? Living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. That sounds great to me. 10-minute lessons and as little as 3 weeks. I like that. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/bucknuts. Again, get up to 60% off at babbel.com/bucknuts, spelled BABBEL.com/bucknuts. Rules and restrictions may apply. Bax, I just find it awesome that you were a customer of Babbel long before they were a sponsor of the show, and now you can go anywhere in the world and speak the language pretty much.
I love our sponsors today, Dave. I got to say, it's the reason I got married and then the reason my wife wants to divorce me. As my friends all say, French Bax is the worst Bax. So the sponsors today are excellent. I'm a big fan of both of them.
Yes. And we're big fans of them as well. We're fans of you. I think that's just so cool that it really is cool that you've not just learned one extra language, you've learned multiple extra. Because honestly, that's one thing Americans we're not really, and I'm part of the problem. I can speak a little Spanish, not nearly enough. I need to get with Babbel and get fluent in Spanish. Too many Americans do not speak a second language. We're pretty bad about that. But
the truth is, though, is that like having lived in Europe, right, where I first learned my German, and I use Babbel to keep up on it now. Actually, I sit in the advanced lessons, and it reminds me of the grammar that I occasionally forget because the structure is different than English. But the truth is, Dave, where we are, the closest drive to anywhere that majority speaks not English, outside of little enclaves in certain places, is French Canada. That's a 12-hour drive, 10-hour drive. When I lived in Dusseldorf, Germany, I was within a 6-hour drive of 8 different languages.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's just truth. Yeah. Europeans can speak a lot of different languages. I have a funny story. I was in my one time to Europe. Were we in Italy at the time? Yeah, we were in Italy, and there was an Italian man and a Spanish man trying to talk to each other, right? In their own language. The Spanish man was trying to talk in Italian. He could speak a little Italian. The Italian guy could speak a little bit of Spanish. So they're trying to talk to each other. Eventually, they're like, my wife overheard this. They're like, "Do you speak English?" And they're both like, "Yeah." Then they just started speaking English to each other, and then they were fine. So they could speak English better than they could speak Italian or Spanish, but they could speak obviously all 3. Anyway, all right, moving right along. Penn State, geez. Yeah. I am surprised Ohio State's a 3.5-point favorite. This feels like a pick'em game. Now, I'm going to, speaking of a pick'em, I am going to pick Ohio State to win a close one. I don't know what score I'm going to go with. We'll reveal that on Friday with J-Book, as we are wont to do. I do think Ohio State's going to win, but man, I'm surprised the spread's 3.5.
It's because Ohio State always beats Penn State, even though we shouldn't. Like, there's a clip going around on the internet, and it's some bro at Penn State just throwing stuff, screaming, "Every year it's Ohio State." Like the only time like that they've beaten us in like the last decade was that blocked field goal game, right? And the problem is I think Vegas is like, yeah, we're worried about some of the basics on Ohio State, but on the other hand, James Franklin. So that's I think that the issue here for us is, or for Penn State is that like nobody really trusts their coach. Nobody's really sure who's at quarterback in a big game. And Ohio State historically in these settings, even with their fear about the offensive line, usually wins. And that's, I think, the overarching reason why Ohio State is a favorite at Penn State. It also helps significantly because we're not at night. And Penn State at night is one of the most, if not the most intimidating venues in all of college football. So getting this as a noon game also really helps Ohio State out a lot. So those are kind of reasons why I think Ohio State is favored in this game. And I also think that we're looking on it through OSU shaded glasses, Dave. I mean, how many times would we have come into this weekend if we had, let's say we beat Nebraska better last weekend. Let's say we beat them by 3 touchdowns. We'd probably all be like, yeah, we're going to handle this. But because the O-line is such a glaring, like Kevin McAllister, kind of situation right now for us, that it's almost like we're a little too close to it. I think if you take a step back, like call 30 random numbers in the Atlanta metro area and say, who do you think wins Ohio State, Penn State? Like 25 of them will say Ohio State.
Hunter on YouTube. I know we're down our left tackle, but I cannot believe the absolute 180 everyone has made on this team. I haven't done a 180. I've been very confident. I'm a little less confident. I still am picking Ohio State to win it all. I know that's insane. I just think it's really not insane. They have the second best odds to win the national championship. Georgia has the best odds. You're like, Oregon has worse odds than Ohio State? Yeah, not much worse, but they're third. Ohio State's got the second best odds to win the national championship. I think last week was a one-game aberration. I hope that's what that was. We'll see. It's a good thing about
Dave,
sports. We'll find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out. And the truth is it may well be a one-week aberration, but it's exacerbated by the struggles we saw at left tackle. And, everybody's like, oh, well, we only lost one guy. What's the big deal? Well, we don't have a sufficient backup. That's like saying, well, 80% of the wall is holding water back. Well, okay, the other 20% is a flood. So, that's kind of the big fear here is, and maybe this is just my old school football mentality on it, but if you're not great in the trenches, you're not going to win big games. And OSU was not great in the trenches on the D side against Oregon, and they weren't great in the trenches on the O side against Nebraska. And those are really the two areas, other than some unfortunate deep ball issues with one of our DBs, that have stood out in the last couple of weeks as, what are we doing there? And, the Penn State's got a very talented defensive line and a really good team. So these are reasons why I think if this week was Purdue, we maybe wouldn't be panicking as much, but it's like, and we have no idea who's playing left tackle, and we're going to the hardest road venue in the conference, and we're playing a top 5 team, and good luck. That's why I think there's a lot of gloom and doom right now, because everybody's like, we have not figured this out yet.
I tell you, it's going to be a good day on Saturday. Now, Asian Posh Doreen, our good friend, saying if that team up north beats Oregon, oh my God, that's
never going to happen.
Oregon's going to smack them. It's going to be a good day on Saturday, my friends. Buckeyes are going to win, and everything's going to be back on that's already on the table. They're going to be exactly where they need to be, the Buckeyes, after this win. And then Michigan's going to lose to Oregon and probably get embarrassed. It's going to be.
I think it'll be lopsidedly ugly. I have been fading Michigan all year, and it has made me lots of money on my DraftKings account, let me tell you. But, Dave, that's the thing here, too, is if they get past this Penn State game, I don't care if they win by 1. They get past Penn State, then it's a little bit of a downhill. It's Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, who's going to be solid, and then the bad version of Michigan that, I don't care who it is. You see those helmets. Ryan Day needs to beat them. All that conversation earlier about firing Ryan Day, where I'm like, don't get there. If we don't win this year's Michigan game, we need to have a real serious conversation because they stink.
Well, let's finish with this. Zach on Facebook. Imagine they lose to Penn State and Indiana. Then is Day fired? You say
they beat Michigan? If they beat Michigan, then no.
I would say no.
It's crazy. Because I'm going to tell you, if they lose to Penn State and Indiana, and they won't make the playoff in that scenario, right, I'm pretty sure it's going to be because of offensive line issues. But a year here where they beat Michigan, and then they probably win a 10th game in a bowl game potentially, and we look at it and we go, well, we need to do better on the O-line. I'm not firing him for that, right? He better move a few guys off his staff in that scenario. The only way you can talk to me realistically about Ryan Day losing his job after this season is if we don't beat Michigan, because that's getting to the point where it's unacceptable, because they suck this year. They're not good. They shouldn't make a bowl game.
Yeah, if they go 9-3, that would be, even with a win over Michigan. I agree. He's not going to get fired after beating Michigan. Man, if they go 9-3, miss the first 12-team playoff with this roster, it's not going to happen.
The
I
hot
answered
seat
the
will be
question.
next
He
year.
asked the question. We answered it, but
The hot seat would be next year. But I would tell you, if it's 9-3 and one of them is Michigan, then we need to call Mike Vrabel.
that would do it. That
would be the end of it here.
Yep.
Because the one reality is the one thing you can't do at Ohio State is frequently lose to Michigan. And if you're flubbing big games and losing to Michigan, I think the basic expectation at Ohio State, with the way we've sort of gone from coach to coach to coach with consistently being an elite program, that won't fly.
I think they're going to win out. Ohio State will. They're going to get to Indy. They're going to have a rematch against Oregon, and we'll see what
I'm
happens.
still there with you too, Dave. The left tackle position is utterly concerning to me, but I said this back in the summer when I predicted it. I said I thought we'd lose at Oregon and beat them in a rematch in the Big Ten championship. And the rest of the team, I mean, the D was – this is the thing we're not talking about. The D was pretty good last week.
Right.
Like, they were pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So and they looked a little different. They brought more pressure. I wish they had brought that much pressure against Dylan Gabriel. There were multiple times where they brought 5-6 guys. They got to the quarterback. There's a lot of good signs defensively here too. Like the left tackle situation may be a moot point because Ohio State may win this game 17-6 or something. I could easily see that happening. And that seems like that happens a lot against Penn State, where it's like a kind of a low-scoring battle of a game. The defense plays their brains out, and we win like 20-9. I could easily see that happening this week.
Great stuff as always from Matt Baxendell. Make sure you read his column every Sunday. It is The Bucket. Hopefully it's a happy bucket this Sunday. Great stuff from Bax. I know you got to get off of here and learn a 13th language, so I'll let you do that. Thank you for your insights, my friend.
Au revoir, mon ami.
He's the man. He's Matt Baxendell. He's the people's champ. He's the Renaissance man. And really appreciate Bax. He does a great job for us and has for a long time. Columnist, podcast guest, post on the message board. So great stuff from Bax. Bax has been with us for I think 15 years or something like that, maybe more. So thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And if you're still with me, I'll let you know about our other sponsor on today's show, Joy Mode. I think I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex. And for the sake of our partner, we may need to have better sex. The issue is that over-the-counter pills contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Here are the game changers. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals. All ingredients have been studied and researched in humans. Go to tryjoymode.com/bucknuts and get 20% off with code Bucknuts at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping with code Bucknuts at tryjoymode.com/bucknuts. Great sex solved naturally. There we go. All right, my friends, thank you very much. Thanks again to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks to our live audience for the questions and comments. Thanks to everybody who's listening to the show. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.